Greetings superior beings, greetings supreme being, world human race, our common enemies, death, welcome on Try Something.Vegetarian. I'm Ulrich Hoffman, your host during this live broadcast. This is the broadcast entitled New Additional Iran Sanctions, Oil Imports of 3 Iran-Waiver countries cut to zero. RFERL article review. That is the Radio Free Europe article. So I first turn off this thing, and this is the article I want to review. Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty, oil imports of 3 Iran-Waiver countries cut to zero. And it occurred to me basically that's comparable to a boycott, and in this case the US decides which countries should boycott Iranian cancer oil. And on my channel you can also find previous broadcasts I did about other articles. And I'm going to start with my revised writings. So this is not the same as the previous. These writings have been changed a bit and I've added some things. And I think it's better to read that first and then go into the articles. It's just a short intro basically.
Alarming. Jesuits WW3 to start in May over new Iran sanctions, man-made floods. Could new Iran sanctions evoke a reaction from Russia and trigger World War III? There clearly is a mainstream media blackout concerning geoengineering, weather control or weather manipulation with ionospheric heaters and cancer chemtrails. Could it be the recent floods in Iran were deliberately created with weather weapons as a prelude to a third world war? Have they planned to invade Iran like Iraq, and does Trump want to steal the Iranian people's cancer oil? If a majority of the Israeli people is against a two-state solution, endorsed by the Vatican, and Netanyahu opposes a two-state solution, it is clear a two-state solution world war has become impossible. Some think Trump has prepared the building of a third temple for 35 years, see YouTube videos, and the birth of a perfect red gentish cow without any blemishes announces Armageddon and the coming of the cancer scalar or Barmageddon Mashiach, the Messiah, according to rabbis and Hebrew scholars.
You'll get Exxon to come in there and in 2 months. You ever see these guys, how good they are, the great oil companies? They'll rebuild that sucker brand new. It'll be beautiful. And I'd ring it, and I'd take the oil. And I said, I'll take the oil.
So that's from the video. Trump, I'll take the oil, Greenman bucket. Uploaded that. So then you can check it on YouTube. See the full version. So stealing the cancer oil is definitely not allowed. Not even under the guise of bombing ISIS terrorists. So no blood for cancer oil, universal peace forever. So I think we must pursue universal peace, invest in controlling all vectors that control aging. 4.6 trillion for the wars in the Middle East, these depleted uranium babies. Iraq didn't have any weapons of mass destruction either. Now they're talking of Iran attempting to make a nuclear weapon. But what evidence is there are these sanctions, new sanctions, perhaps illegal sanctions. Is it possible there are laws that make clear that they cannot impose additional sanctions? Getting rid of the agreement doesn't mean that all of a sudden all these sanctions are imposed again. They made that agreement And then they can't just say, well, we do away with it now, we don't keep our end of the agreement, and we're gonna sanction you all. Perhaps something like that, I don't know. And we'll read the rest of this preparation intro to the article.
Would killing the red heifer prevent that Armageddon? Watch. Shocking. Brexit will ensure Israel controls the world. Video review must see. The mysterious time travelers helping me think it will happen in June. Or perhaps it was somebody else. Or just my interpretation of a video. I don't remember. What is clear is that we have to prevent a third Jesuit World War. Ways to prevent a new Iran sanctions world war. 1. Putin could decide to agree with Trump's new Iran sanctions. 2. Trump could decide not to press ahead with sanctions without the approval of Putin. 3. If there is no valid reason for additional sanctions against Iran, they should not be implemented. Jesuits and Masons have infiltrated governments around the world. Advocating population reduction is illegal. Arrest those who advocated it and those whose policies killed millions already. Stop cancer chemtrails. Stop the illegal wars in the Middle East. Invest in controlling all factors that control aging. Make the world great again, please. You have the power. F imperialism. F global gov. F eco-fascism. F two-state solution world war plans. F the Pope, but use a condom. Make the world great. Prevent a new Iran sanctions world war. No blood for cancer oil. Be prepared for a new Iran sanctions world war. Buy a radiological water filter and storable food. Peanut butter and rice. Prevent the Jesuits' Third World War. Do stuff to create universal peace. Important. Must see YouTube video. Watch. Alarming. Jesuits WW3 to start in May over new Iran sanctions? Man-made floods? Cost of wars in the Middle East, 4.6 trillion. Cost of war.com. Netanyahu and Bush lied about Iraq that they possessed weapons of mass destruction, and now it is clear they want to do the same thing with Iran. Sanction Iran under the guise of preventing Iran from building a nuclear weapon. Trump made clear in several speeches he wants to steal the cancer oil of the Iranian people under the guise of bombing ISIS terrorists, and now there is talk of possibly illegal sanctions against Iran, though the Iran nuclear agreement is off the table. So what could these sanctions be based on? What agreement or law would Iran supposedly be in violation of? The depleted uranium war crime babies, a million dead Iraqi civilians, and the incredible cost of the bloody wars, also in U.S. casualties, soldiers who died, and a lot of immigrants and terrorists due to these illegal wars in the Middle East should be enough reason for any intelligent person to invest in controlling all factors that control aging instead. Trump also made clear in a broadcast in relation to terrorists that he wants to take out their families. So he wants to kill innocent women and children. YouTube video, we need to kill their families. If 3 countries will be blocked from importing Iranian oil, then that is comparable to boycotting 3 whole countries. What will happen if they do not stop importing Iranian cancer oil?
Illegal wars in the Middle East. It seems like they've done something to the speech engine, so it reads illegal wars in the Middle East. That's kind of weird. Anyway, cancer oil imports of 3 Iran-Waiver countries, quote, cut to 0, unquote. Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty, le moment suprême.
April 2th 2019-2029. Oil imports of 3 Iran-Waiver countries cut to 0. U.S. Special Representative for Iran Brian Hook Sherwin. Print. 3 of the 8 countries to which Washington granted waivers to import Iranian oil have now cut their shipments from the country to zero, according to the U.S. Special Representative for Iran. In November, we granted 8 oil waivers to avoid a spike in the price of oil. I can confirm today 3 of those importers are now at zero, Brian Hook told reporters in Washington on April 2, without identifying the countries. The United States reimposed sanctions against Iran after withdrawing last year from a landmark 2015 agreement under which Tehran agreed to restrictions on its nuclear program in exchange for sanctions relief. The U.S. administration has a stated goal of reducing Iranian oil exports to zero by demanding importers reduce purchases or face U.S. sanctions. However, Washington has granted Italy, Greece, Turkey, China, India, Japan, South Korea, and Taiwan temporary waivers to import Iranian oil. There are better market conditions for us to accelerate our path to zero, Hook said, adding that Washington is not looking to grant any waivers or exceptions to our sanctions regime. On April 1, a senior U.S. administration official said that the United States was considering additional sanctions against Iran. "We just want a continued chilling effect," the official said. "We want businesses to continue to think doing business with Iran is a terrible idea at this point." The official said Washington hoped to take the additional measures in the coming weeks, based on reporting by Reuters and Parrelated. U.S. fights off claims that sanctions hinder Iran flood relief. U.S. fights off claims that sanctions hinder Iran flood relief. U.S. considering additional Iran sanctions, official says. U.S. considering additional Iran sanctions, official says. Parliament, U.S. official to press Iran sanctions with leaders in Malaysia, Singapore, India. RFERL.org. U.S. considering additional Iran sanctions, official says.
I think it would be fun to read an article on vestnikavkaza.net. I didn't see that before, I've never seen it, so I thought, well, perhaps I should read this then.
U.S. considering additional Iran sanctions, 3 April and 4 o'clock. Reuters. U.S. considering additional Iran sanctions. The U.S. government is considering additional sanctions against Iran that would target areas of its economy that have not been hit before, a senior Trump administration official told reporters. Reuters reports in its article U.S. considering additional Iran sanctions, perhaps in May. Official that the official said the administration aimed to follow through with new sanctions around the first anniversary of the U.S. withdrawal from a 2015 nuclear deal between Iran and several world powers, which President Donald Trump announced last May. "We just want a continued chilling effect," the official said. "We want businesses to continue to think doing business with Iran is a terrible idea at this point." Trump announced last May that the United States would pull out of a 2015 international agreement designed to deny Tehran the ability to make nuclear weapons, and he ordered sanctions be imposed again on the country. The deal, agreed by the United States, France, Britain, Germany, Russia, China and Iran, sought to prevent Iran from developing a nuclear bomb in return for the removal of sanctions that had crippled its economy. The official, speaking on condition of anonymity, said the administration hoped to take the additional measures in the coming weeks. "The more we can do around the anniversary, the better," the official said, while adding that it takes time to put such sanctions together and that the U.S. Treasury Department was working on them. One of the tools the United States has employed includes sanctions on oil imports from Iran. Washington has granted waivers to 8 Iranian oil buyers, but could change that. The official said the United States had the ability not to give those waivers at all. That, I think, is where we're headed, the official said. Reducing the number of waivers would limit oil exports from Iran, the fourth largest producer in OPEC. The United States set an earlier target of driving Iranian oil exports to zero, and the official said that goal had not changed. U.S. domestic oil production would help offset such a change, the official said. China, India, Japan, South Korea and Turkey are likely to be given waivers after they expire in May that could cap Iran's crude oil exports at about 1.1 million barrels per day, U.S.-based analysts at Eurasia Group said earlier this year. That would remove Italy, Greece and Taiwan from the current waivers list.
RFERL didn't mention these three countries, so that's the first time I read that now. Greece, Italy and Taiwan. Well, the more countries are removed from the waivers list, the higher the cancer oil price will get, of course. They will have to import it from other countries, basically. So perhaps somebody could explain to me what gives the US the authority to do this. And I advise everybody to boycott Monsanto companies. I can show the list again. So 37 people died of a GMO containing a food supplement that's covered up with these fake reports about dead honeybees. And then they also others expose that these articles are fake. Or basically the information about 37 million dead honeybees due to GMO, that may be to cover up so these 37 people that have died of a genetically modified organism. GMO food as a sterilizing murder weapon to reduce the global population. More about it in my previous broadcast and also in my future broadcast. So I think that preventing that planned illegal population reduction is part of creating a perfect society, and we have to do the opposite, of course, to control factors that control aging, not to self-annihilate. That's the stupidest thing we can do, but investing the trillion Trump wants to spend on revising the nuclear arsenal, on controlling these factors that control aging, then there will be progress, then we will live happier, longer and healthier lives. So happier, that's possible as well, of course. More fun. We need fun. Okay, so that was an interesting article with the three countries already broadcast by me. And then there's this one I selected. Iranian oil minister heads for energy talks in Russia. So I add cancer because cancer oil, it's known, it causes cancer. The petroleum-based cancer oil industry causes lots of cancer cases, so it's best to keep your distance to the cancer-causing tachineless cars in front of you. Waterpoweredcar.com. Car Isaac de Rivas. First car drove on water, not on cancer petroleum-based fluids. And there's the dioxin problem, and there may be other toxic fumes. So if you stand in front of a traffic light and you smell something bad, it's best to put your coat or your vest or whatever you have over your nose so that you can filter the air. Anyway, there are alternatives. Let's read this. This is on oilprice.com. So that should be canceroilprice.com. So I place cancer in front of everything that causes cancer. I was also treated with chemotherapy about 6 years ago. And chemicals have a synergistic effect with cancer-causing electromagnetic radiation, according to Dr. Cyril Smith. And it goes hand in hand with electrosensitivity. And people can shield with aluminum foil. There are also shielding paints. You can paint over the foil. And you have to air your room if you want to make a cage of Faraday of aluminum foil, but that doesn't shield against these illegal directed energy weapon torture attacks. I can just as well put it on my camera then. So he said he'll take the oil. I'll have to think about that for a while. If there's any way he could take that oil legally, basically. Anyway, I can't think of any, so just let's start reading the article.
Iranian oil minister heads for energy talks in Russia by Tsvetlana Paraskova, April 1 th 2019, 7 p.m. CDT. Zangan Iran's oil minister Bijan Zanjan arrived in Moscow on Monday for senior-level talks regarding the global oil market and energy cooperation between Iran and Russia, the Islamic Republic news agency, IRNA, reported. Zanjan will be meeting with Russian Energy Minister Alexander Novak to discuss energy-related issues, according to Iranian media. Russia, the leader of the non-OPEC group of nations part of the OPEC Plus deal, was reportedly the deal broker that convinced Iran to agree to the wording of the production cut deal that began on January 1 and currently expires in June. Iran, alongside Libya and Venezuela, was exempted from the production cuts at the OPEC, non-OPEC meeting in December, due to the U.S. sanctions on its oil industry. The visit of the Iranian oil minister in Moscow comes a month before the United States is due to decide whether to extend all or some or none of the waivers it had granted to key Iranian oil customers when it reimposed the sanctions in early November. The U.S. waivers for 8 key Iranian oil customers, including China, India, Japan, and South Korea, expire in early May, while the U.S. administration says that it continues to pursue zero Iranian oil exports. Analysts expect Washington to extend waivers to at least a few of the currently exempted buyers, with reduced volumes allowed under the new waivers, as the administration wouldn't want to push oil prices too high. Russian oil companies, on the other hand, are currently sticking to the production cuts through June. The firms have not discussed production plans for the second half of the year and have decided that they would do so after April. Vyacheslav, President and CEO of Russian oil producer Lukoil, said last month. Last week, reports had it that Russia, always the reluctant actor in OPEC Plus cuts extensions, may not support an extension of the deal for the full 6 months until the end of the year, by Tsvetlana Paraskova for oilprice.com. More top reads from oilprice.com. Reuters, OPEC's oil production drops to lowest since 2015. Expect higher oil prices as OPEC clashes with Trump. Big oil is heading offshore.
Next article from France 24. Iran-FM says Europe incapable of bypassing US sanctions. Foreign Minister Javad Zarif, or Zarif. Okay, France24.com. Vive la France, vive la résistance, vive Guy Jean. Whoa, I pushed the wrong button.
Iran-FM says Europe incapable of bypassing US sanctions. April 4, 2019. Iranian Foreign Minister Javad Zarif, pictured February 2019, said that his country would continue to pressure European countries to act on their obligations within the Iran nuclear deal, but added that we never had any hopes in the METHYLCOBALAMIN. Tehran, AFP. Iranian Foreign Minister Javad Zarif said on Wednesday European powers were incapable of bypassing sanctions imposed on Tehran by the US after it withdrew from the Iran nuclear deal. Iran and 6 world powers agreed on a deal in 2015 that severely restricted Tehran's nuclear activities in return for sanctions relief and economic incentives. However, President Donald Trump withdrew Washington from the deal, technically called the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, JCPOA, last May, reimposing punishing sanctions on the Islamic Republic. The other parties to the nuclear deal, Britain, China, France, Germany and Russia along with the European Union, however insist they remain committed to making the deal work. The Europeans at first viewed the JCPOA, nuclear deal, as an achievement, but maybe they were not prepared to, and certainly they were not capable of standing up against US sanctions, Zarif said in an interview with Khamenei. The official website of Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. We will continue pressing the Europeans to implement their commitments. Europe must know that they cannot shy away from their responsibilities with a few statements and some unaccomplished plans, he added. Zarif, who was his country's chief negotiator in the negotiations leading to the deal, said that Iran would continue to pressure the Europeans to act on their obligations within the deal, but added that we never had any hopes in them. Instead of the Western powers, the Islamic Republic has turned to its traditional partners such as Russia and China, Zarif said, adding the future of our foreign policy lies in that way. 2019 AFP.
Okay. Just testing my microphone. Well, I couldn't find missile command. Basically, the idea was putting that on. And of course, we know the movie War Games with Matthew Broderick. the only way to win the game of thermonuclear warfare is not to play with mutually assured destruction, etc. Same here, nuclear winter, and then there's Putin's missile lost at sea. Supposedly an unstoppable missile. I don't believe in it. You can see the Dr. Bernard Easton HARP patent. They can make the Tesla plasma shield. It can get through that, and they can simply generate it anywhere they want to. Some types of scalar waves, also called radiant energy of Nikola Tesla's death ray, travel faster than the speed of light. So that's not the Iron Dome I'm talking about. So I think that Iran would not be able to form any threat, realistic threat against Israel and the US. US spent more than all the other countries combined in revising in the bloody war machine and the military industrial complex. 4.6 trillion, a trillion is a million millions. An incredible amount of money wasted on these illegal wars. Basically, they need the approval from Congress, approval of Congress. And calling them kinetic actions doesn't make it less war, it's just a war basically. So many people consider these illegal wars, and many Americans and Europeans are against imperialism invading other countries for whatever reason. And it's kind of weird if they start spreading depleted uranium, which is a war crime, and these people are not arrested for it, and then people that resist the invasion of their country are supposedly the terrorists, which they fund to destabilize these countries and to steal the cancer oil, apparently. So I think the people responsible should be ashamed of themselves, what they've done to their fellow humans. I think about that for a change, how they can make it better. And perhaps these leaders are also extorted with the directed energy weapon torture technology, but they are still responsible for their actions. So a fair trial is impossible. They also control the judges with this technology, of course. It's done by the Jesuits and Masons, who are in control of these intelligence agencies, which are all Masonic and in control of the synthetic telepathy machine, the apparatus to remotely monitor and alter brainwaves, the Malech patent, and the remote torture technology, which can be used in active denial system mode, PEP mode, and they can generate any type of electromagnetic field with that. And they've tortured my teeth out of my mouth with this technology, believe it or not. And that beam was partially deflected by a grounded Van de Graaff generator, which I still have in the cellar, so I could play with that. But that doesn't stop their scalar waves, radiant energy. You need to generate a Tesla plasma shield. So that was what I wanted to do. So perhaps that is possible, but it would be tiny Tesla plasma shield. So you would need a lot of power if you want to create a big one. And if there would be a world war, it's possible theoretically that none without a Tesla plasma shield would survive. Because scalar weapons have made nuclear weapons obsolete, also clear from the patent, Dr. Bernard Easton HARP patent. And HARP is a fake facility, open every 6 years to the public. And they have a camouflaged phased array antenna in Poker Flat, Alaska, not in Gakona. And that's supposed to be even bigger than HARP. And they may very well have created these floods in Iran. So that's all geoengineering. There's a mainstream media blackout about that as well. So the mainstream media is supposedly controlled by the CIA as well. Project Mockingbird, etc. So there are certain subjects they are not allowed to produce news about. And there are certain mainstream media blackouts. Perhaps I could do a broadcast about it as well someday. So I'm into preventing more spending on the bloody wars, and it's about your own future basically. If you spend it on nukes, you can't spend it on controlling the factors that control aging, and nukes can only be used to self-annihilate. They're weapons of self-destruction. Alright, the other thing I wanted to cover in this broadcast, I may do a separate broadcast about it, was the red heifer or heifer. End of days birth of red heifer in Israel may signal coming of Messiah, Hebrew scholars say. RT, RussianTelevision.com, I think. So we can read that in the wiki article.
End of days, birth of red heifer in Israel may signal coming of Messiah, Hebrew scholars say. Published time, 10th of September, 2018 17:22. Edited time, 11th of September, 2018 12:30. Get short URL. End of days, birth of red heifer in Israel may signal coming of Messiah, Hebrew scholars say. If proven to be the true, unblemished red heifer of prophecy, it could signal the end of days. Copyright the Temple Institute. A Jewish group says an apparently completely red heifer has been born, the first in 2,000 years, thus fulfilling a biblical prophecy that signals the coming of the Messiah, which Christians believe will end with an apocalypse. The birth of the potential cow of prophecy was announced by the Temple Institute, a group which says it is dedicated to every aspect of the Holy Temple of Jerusalem. On the 17th day of Elul, 5778, August 28, 2018, a red heifer was born in the land of Israel, the group wrote on its Facebook page. The organization says that the female baby cow foreshadows the construction of the Third Temple in Jerusalem, heralding the arrival of the Jewish Messiah. Evangelical Christian theologians also believe the construction of the Third Temple will lead to Judgment Day. References to red heifers are present in both the Christian and Jewish traditions. The calf has reportedly been examined by rabbinical experts, but will continue to be studied every few months to determine its legitimacy as the red heifer of biblical prophecy. The Temple Institute began its Raise a Red Heifer breeding program back in 2015 with the express goal of producing the heifer of prophecy, which it would be required to meet a number of requirements, chief among which being that the calf be entirely red and without blemish. Read more. Life as we know it ends in 2040, Aussie News dig up MIT's global collapse prediction. The group imported the frozen embryos of red Angus cows and implanted them in domestic Israeli cows. Red heifers have been born previously, but were disqualified for failing to meet all the prophetic requirements. A calf born in 1999 turned out to be male, and one from 2002 wasn't entirely red. It had one patch of white hair. It has been 6 years since the Earth survived the much feared end of the world in 2012, as promised by the ancient Maya, but if the calf turns out to be the cow of prophecy, we may have to search for underground bunkers and stockpile cans of baked beans once again. Like this story? Share it with a friend. Trends: Christian News, Israel News reporting what the mainstream media won't. Follow RT's Twitter account from our partners. End of days: birth of red heifer in Israel may signal coming of Messiah. Hebrew scholars say Attica revolt 47 years on, why infamous prison revolt still matters. End of days: birth of red heifer in. A waiver is the voluntary relinquishment or surrender of some known right or privilege. Sometimes the elements of voluntary and known are established by a legal fiction. In this case, one is presumed to know one's rights and that those rights are voluntarily relinquished if not asserted at the time. In civil procedure, certain arguments must be raised in the first objection that a party submits to the court, or else they will be deemed waived.
So watch out, I'm gonna let it read the CIA Vatican edited encyclopedia, wikipedia.org. So if you don't want to hear it, stick your fingers in your ears.
The red heifer, Hebrew, para Adama, also known as the red cow, was a cow brought to the priests as a sacrifice according to the Torah, and its ashes were used for the ritual purification of Tamat Hamat, the impurity of the dead, that is, an Israelite who had come into contact with the corpse. 1. Hebrew Bible, Torah, Book of Numbers according to, speak unto the children of Israel, that they bring thee a red heifer without spot, wherein is no blemish, and upon which never came yoke. Numbers 19:2. The Book of Numbers stipulates that the cow must be red in color, without blemish, and it must not have been used to perform work. Numbers 19:2. The heifer is then ritually slaughtered, Numbers 19:3, and burned outside of the camp, Numbers 19:3-6. Cedar wood, hyssop, and wool or yarn dyed scarlet are added to the fire, and the remaining ashes are placed in a vessel containing pure water, Numbers 19:9. In order to purify a person who has become ritually contaminated by contact with the corpse, water from the vessel is sprinkled on him, using a bunch of hyssop, on the 3rd and 7th day of the purification process, Numbers 19:18-19. The priest who performs the ritual then becomes ritually unclean, and must then wash himself and his clothes in running waters. He is deemed impure until evening. Mishnah. The Mishnah, the central compilation of rabbinic oral law, the oral component of the written Torah, contains a tractate on the red heifer, tractate para, cow, in Seder To'arat, which explains the procedures involved. The tractate has no existing Gemara, although commentary on key elements of the procedure is found in the Gemara or other tractates of the Talmud. According to Mishnah para, the presence of 2 black hairs invalidates a red heifer, in addition to the usual requirements of an unblemished animal for sacrifice.
But what if it has 1 black hair? Isn't that imperfect enough?
Details of the commandment. There are various other requirements, such as natural birth. 2. The water must be living, that is spring water. This is a stronger requirement than for a ritual bath. Rainwater accumulated in a cistern is permitted for a mikveh but cannot be used in the red heifer ceremony. The Mishnah reports that in the days of the temple in Jerusalem, water for the ritual came from the pool of Siloam. The ceremony involved was complex and detailed. To ensure complete ritual purity of those involved, care was taken to ensure that no one involved in the red heifer ceremony could have had any contact with the dead or any form of tumah, and implements were made of materials such as stone, which in Jewish law do not act as carriers for ritual impurities. The Mishnah recounts that children were used to draw and carry the water for the ceremony, children born and reared in isolation for the specific purpose of ensuring that they never came into contact with a corpse. Various other devices were used, including a causeway from the Temple Mount to the Mount of Olives so that the heifer and accompanying priests would not come in contact with the grave. 3. According to the Mishnah, the ceremony of the burning of the red heifer took place on the Mount of Olives. A ritually pure Kohen slaughtered the heifer and sprinkled its blood in the direction of the temple 7 times. The red heifer was then burned on a pyre, together with crimson dyed wool, hyssop, and cedar wood. In recent years, the site of the burning of the red heifer on the Mount of Olives has been tentatively located by archaeologist Jonathan Adler. 4. Jewish tradition. The existence of a red heifer that conforms with all of the rigid requirements imposed by halakha is a biological anomaly. Clarification needed. The animal must be entirely of one color, and there is a series of tests listed by the rabbis to ensure this. For instance, the hair of the cow must be absolutely straight, to ensure that the cow had not previously been yoked, as this is a disqualifier. According to Jewish tradition, only 9 red heifers were actually slaughtered in the period extending from Moses to the destruction of the Second Temple. Mishnah Para recounts them, stating that Moses prepared the first, Ezra the second, Simon the just and Yochanan the high priest prepared 2 each, and Elionai ben Hakayaf, Hanamiel the Egyptian, and Yishmael ben Pavi prepared 1 each. Mishnah Para 3-5. The extreme rarity of the animal, combined with the detailed ritual in which it is used, have given the red heifer special status in Jewish tradition. It is cited as the prime example of a hak, or biblical law for which there is no apparent logic, because the state of ritual purity obtained through the ashes of a red heifer is a necessary prerequisite for participating in temple service. Efforts have been made in modern times by Jews wishing for biblical ritual purity, Sitma and Lahura, and in anticipation of the building of the Third Temple to locate a red heifer and recreate the ritual. However, multiple candidates have been disqualified. Temple Institute main article, Temple Institute. The Temple Institute, an organization dedicated to preparing the reconstruction of a Third Temple in Jerusalem, has been attempting to identify red heifer candidates consistent with the requirements of Numbers 19:1-22 and Mishnah Tractate Para 5-6. In recent years, the Institute thought to have identified 2 candidates, one in 1997 and another in 2002. 7. The Temple Institute had initially declared both kosher but later found each to be unsuitable. The Institute has been raising funds in order to use modern technology to produce a red heifer that is genetically based on the red Angus. 8. In September 2018, the Institute announced a red heifer candidate was born, saying the heifer is currently a viable candidate and will be examined, to see whether it possesses the necessary qualifications for the red heifer.
Well, I think I've read that the 10th red heifer that is born will be prepared by the Moshiach, the Messiah. But if this is already enough to bring on Armageddon, perhaps it's best to kill it. Would that prevent the prophecy from unfolding? But then no doubt they'd have another Gentech cow in no time. So yeah, any ideas are welcome to prevent new Iran sanctions or additional sanctions world war. And people can also protest on Dam Square or all around the world. For example, against these sanctions, or telling countries to boycott Iran, that they may not import oil anymore, and the US gets to determine that. And to select these countries. So not all of them are selected, only a couple of them. Based on what is that selection made then? It's just perhaps no one knows. And also what can be done against these sanctions, not giving them waivers. Well, perhaps waivers are less fattening than cookies, so I think that universal peace can be achieved with education and I think also by stopping wars in the Middle East. Yankee go home. I had some other ways. Perhaps I should make a list of ways to create universal peace. Thinking about it. Perhaps also arresting Committee of 300 members, especially those that advocate reducing the global population, and doing that through maintaining wars in the advanced countries, etc. And there has to be an investigation into the Knights Templar who are associated with both of these attacks of I mean the denounced attacks of Breivik and Brenton Tarrant. And they are both associated with the Knights Templar. And I think what is also important in this case is that Putin and Trump must have an agreement on what action can be taken and what would be a proper course to sail in. Of course, war between Russia and the US must be avoided, and I think it also takes cutting spending on the military, creating universal peace, and probably also legalization of cannabis. Yes, I hear yes. Because I say it now. I said it now already. I said yes before I said I hear yes. So that's true. Okay. Of course, it's illegal to block a working cure from the public. So that's why all these healing medicinal plants must be legalized, including cocaine and heroin. I have a doctor's subscription for the use of cannabis, so I don't do any other drugs or healing medicinal plants. Okay, I'm quite tired, so I'm gonna end this broadcast now. Thank you all for watching. Please like, subscribe, and especially share important videos on your timeline. Check out my channel, Try Something Vegetarian or Try Something Vegan. Try Something.Vegetarian is my YouTube channel. And it's healthiest to eat vegan as long as you make sure you get enough vitamin B12, which you can also buy in vitamin B12 spray. And it's METHYLCOBALAMIN. You can also get it as tablets. But I think that hydrolyzed tablets may increase your cancer risk, so it's better to take foods that contain these vitamins. That's the best way, so it's also better absorbed by your body, better. And or in vitamin spray form. Alright. Thank you all for watching. Tune in next time and do stuff for universal peace. So if you're a single lady, you're welcome for a shiatsu hand massage, or to do a broadcast, to watch movies, or to make a movie, or to do other things that you like for universal peace.